Have you ever heard of a country where people still hunt with eagles, drink horse milk, and play rugby with a headless goat? Did you know that Kazakhstan has the most extended land border with Russia at 7,591 kilometers in length? Kazakhstan has already delimited the state border with Turkmenistan by land in the Caspian Sea in 2022. But the border between them and Russia is still currently being established. This is because of the sheer length of the line and the hard-to-reach terrain, particularly a 300-kilometer section that stretches through the mountains where the authorities still have issues visiting the remote locations. Number 2. Kazakhstan is popular for its nomadic lifestyle, and one particular gear that they must have is the yurt or kirizyue. The yurt is a portable, weather-resistant, and eco-friendly house that can be packed up and built up in a matter of hours. Originally, yurts were made from felt covers wrapped around an oval-shaped wooden frame. The average yurt is around 7 to 9 meters in diameter, but some yurts reach 16 to 18 meters in diameter. In modern days, the yurt has adapted to modern requirements made from lightweight and flexible wood. In 2014, the yurt was included in UNESCO's representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Number 3. When you hear about nuclear power, you associate it with superpowers like Russia or the US. You may not know this, but Kazakhstan is the world's biggest uranium producer at 12% of total value in the world. The country has been an important source for over 50 years and reached its height in 2019 with almost 28% of the world's production. Unfortunately, due to the decreasing prices of uranium and the pandemic, production has decreased since 2016. Number 4. Amazingly, although Kazakhstan is the biggest uranium producer, the country is against nuclear weapons. The nation was once part of the Soviet Union and inherited thousands of nuclear weapons, but Kazakhstan decided to relinquish them voluntarily. With their Central Asian neighbors, the country established the Central Asian Nuclear Weapons Free Zone Treaty. They are against nuclear weapons due to being affected by the nuclear test in the region of Semipalatinsk between 1949 and 1989. Number 5. The Semipalatinsk area, or Semi as it's now called, was the site where the Soviet Union tested 456 nuclear devices in Kazakhstan. The area contains a big lake that looks beautiful but is known as the Atomic Lake. The lake was formed as a result of a nuclear testing explosion. Although the area was uninhabited and access for civilians was restricted, there are 1 million people estimated to reside about 150 kilometers away from the test site. The atomic clouds have brought overexposure and radioactive contamination can be observed from the ground, inhalation of particles, and contaminated food. These exposures led to many different health issues, such as congenital malformations and increased risks of cancer. There are so many physical deformations that Semi-Medical University even hosts a museum of mutations. Number 6. The Soviet Union's influence is also evidenced in the Karlog, which is the pride of the Kremlin's Gulag system or prison labor camps. The prison labor camp was established in 1930, and by the time it was closed in 1959, it had tortured over 1 million prisoners. These prisoners were religious leaders, writers, and anyone who displayed disloyalty to the regime. Then it extended to their wives and children as well. The method of torture ranged from extreme hot and cold or water tanks that deprived them of sleep. The place was well known for childhood morbidity, and it was called the Mommy Cemetery. Karlog is now made into a Gulag museum complex where Kazakhstan commemorates the fallen inmates. Number 7. Kazakhstan was ruled for 30 years by the same president after its independence. President Nursultan Nazarbayev stepped down in 2019 without specifying a reason for his resignation. Nazarbayev came to power in 1991, being the first elected president after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Nazarbayev has been praised for his effort in developing Kazakhstan into a more prosperous country while maintaining a delicate balance between Russia and the West. He was also the one who spearheaded the modernization of the oil industry and gave up the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons. Number 8. The country may be a site of Amazonian warrior women. In 2015, the remains of an ancient warrior holding a huge sword and dagger were found in South Kazakhstan. It was believed that the remains could date back to as early as 200 BC. Experts believe that she might be a part of a warrior woman from the nomadic nation of the Kongui people, who once fought against the Han people. Number 9. One of the proofs of Kazakhstan's economic success is that they were the first former Soviet Union nation to pay back its IMF debt. A balance of about $385 million was drawn between 1993 and 1998 to support Kazakhstan's transition effort after gaining independence. The repayment was possible thanks to their main exports, specifically petroleum. The country was able to repay the balance by May 24, 2000. After the repayment, their gross official reserves still stood at $1.8 billion. It shows how healthy their economic condition is. They still have leftover reserves even after repaying their debt. Number 10. If you ever visit Kazakhstan, one particular game may be shocking to see for tourists: Kokpar. This is one of the oldest nomadic games in the country that's invented in Kazakhstan and has been played for hundreds of years. Kokpar means goat picking, and the game involves riders on horseback fighting for a headless carcass of a goat and scoring a goal in a special gate. When you look at it, it's similar to rugby or polo, but switch out the ball with a headless goat. This is a tamer version of the ancient game, where riders used live wolves instead of a headless goat. After the game, the goat will be cleaned of its fur and entrails, and food will be prepared for all its participants. There's a Kokpar Federation in Kazakhstan, and competitions are held annually. There's even an international game in the World Nomad Games held in Kyrgyzstan. Number 11. When you eat with locals in Kazakhstan, pay attention to what they're serving you, especially when they serve you bishbarmak. Bishbarmak is a national dish made of an entire sheep's head. They serve meat with intention when they divide it, according to the custom. For instance, the tongue is for someone who should be more eloquent. The eyes are for a gift of foresight. The brains are given to those who need wisdom, and ears for children to hear better and listen to their parents. Number 12. Before Kazakhstan fell under the Stalin regime, being nomads was a common lifestyle among its people. Stalin forced the population to settle down as farmers, leading to the starvation of livestock and an unorganized lifestyle. The Kazakh population was diminished by 1.5 million, which is 1/3 of the population. Today, nomads still exist, making up about 1% of the total population in Kazakhstan, where they live in the open steppe and surrounding mountain and hill areas. Number 13. There are about 48 countries in the world that have no access to the ocean, but Kazakhstan is the largest landlocked country. This makes trade a bit harder to do, as most activities are carried out through maritime routes. To counteract this, Kazakhstan implements a pragmatic policy of multi-corridors and transportation routes. This pragmatic policy didn't just make Kazakhstan a viable country. It thrives due to its strategic location between Europe and China, as well as Europe and South Asia. Thanks to their complicated network of railways, highways, airways, and marine corridors, it's now an important transport hub between these regions. The country also added a new development program for infrastructure with an investment of $3.9 billion to build more international corridors throughout the country. Despite its limitations, Kazakhstan successfully changed its fate from a landlocked country to a land-linked country. Number 14. Have you ever hunted animals? Kazakhs have their unique way of hunting called Bakuchi, or eagle hunters. The people of Kazakhstan have always used birds of prey to hunt for foxes or wolves, and this tradition continues until today. The tradition is a rite of passage for Kazakh young men, passed down from their fathers to sons. Bakuchi is now a national sport where 10 regions of Kazakhstan compete in a countrywide tournament. Each competitor is allowed to bring 2 golden eagles, 1 falcon, and 1 eagle. The first stage of the completion is where the eagle should find their owner and catch pigeons, foxes, and rabbits. The next stage is hunting foxes. The Bakuchi will line up on a hill and a fox is released a few hundred meters away. The bird must catch the fox, and the hunter must save the fox. Ideally, eagle hunting must be done during winter, when the birds are at their leanest and hungriest. Number 15. Kazakhstan is also where horses were first domesticated. Archaeologists have found evidence that the Kazakh steppes were where the first horse herding culture resided. According to remains found, horses have been subjected to bits in their teeth, which is an indication that they were once used to pull carts or ride. There are also pieces of pottery used to contain horse milk and horse fat. The animal has continued to be one of the most useful resources for the country. both as a mode of transportation and food consumption. Number 16. Continuing with the Kazakhstan's obsession with horses, their national drink is Cumus, or fermented horse milk. The drink is said to be a symbol of wealth and generosity, with plenty of healthy vitamins and microorganisms in it. The drink is said to have special medicinal properties such as balancing intestinal microflora, increasing hemoglobin levels, tonic effect on the nervous system, preventing tuberculosis, and relieving and eliminating hungover. Typically, the tradition of drinking Cumus also involves inviting friends and family over to share the first and last Cumus, along with exchanging kind words and blessings together. There are over 40 varieties of Cumus, depending on fat content, method of preparation, and period of fermentation. If you're interested in tasting this unique drink, visit the city of Taraz, which exports exquisite Cumus that are exported to European countries. Number 17. Kazakhstan is home to one of the biggest lakes in the world, Lake Balkhash. This lake is not unique due to its size, but its water composition. The western part of the lake is almost fresh and can be used as drinking water, but the eastern side of the lake is brackish to salty. The lake has around 43 islands in it with a total of 66 square kilometers. The difference in composition is due to inflows from different rivers. The Lai River is the inflow to the western part of the lake, while Karatel, Ayaguz, Aksu, and Lepsi rivers serve as the inflow in the eastern part of the lake. The eastern rivers are mineral-rich, which causes the eastern part to be salty. There's a legend about Lake Balkhash, where a beautiful girl named Lee fell in love with a shepherd. Her father created a contest and promised to give his daughter to the winner. Lee helped her lover win the contest, and the angry father turned Lee and the shepherd into rivers and turned himself into a lake to separate them for eternity. Number 18. You might remember one of the most important events in history, the first ever manned spaceflight. The man that became the first person in space was Yuri Gagarin, a Soviet pilot who traveled in a Vostok 1 vehicle. Kazakhstan was the host of Bakor Cosmodrome, where Yuri Gagarin's Vostok 1 blasted off over 6 decades ago. Aside from that, Bakor was also where the famed Sputnik 1, the first ever man-made satellite, launched in 1957. The space station has launched more than 1,200 spaceships into space. Kazakhstan is the land of cosmonauts, and Bakor has operated under a leasing agreement with the Russian Federation since 1994. The site has been a topic of dispute between Russia and Kazakhstan, and in March of 2023, the Kazakhs even prevented Russia's Space Infrastructure Center from moving their assets from Bakor. Russia is now trying to reduce its independence on Bakor by constructing Vostochy Cosmodrome. Number 19. Kazakhstan is also home to the tallest chimney in the world, the Grez-2 power station in Ikebestus. The chimney is 419.7 meters or 1,377 feet tall. The town of Ikebestus itself is a national energy epicenter. The chimney is made of reinforced concrete amounting to over 60,000 tons, and the diameter is 44 meters at the baseline and 14.2 meters on the top. The chimney is used to discharge flue gases high in the atmosphere to maintain the cleanliness of the surrounding atmospheric air, so coal power plants can produce energy while not disturbing local air composition. Number 20. If you're planning to visit Kazakhstan, one place is a must: the Medu skating rink in the region of Almaty. This is the highest skating rink in the world, and it's a great way to enjoy the beautiful nature in the highlands of Almaty. There's an interesting story about this skating rink. Previously, most ice skating competitions in the USSR were held in Siberia, but the Soviet head coach noticed the best ones were in Almaty. The coaches asked the skaters for their secret, and they said the ice in Almaty is faster. They decided to build a new Medu skating rink, and lo and behold, they managed to set 2 world records on the opening day of the rink. Some speculated that the reason the ice in Medu is faster is because of the optimal level of solar radiation, low pressure, low wind, and the clearest water of Malaya Almatinka River. Number 21. Apples are said to have originated from Kazakhstan, particularly the region of Almaty. Almaty was once called Alma-Ata, or Father of Apples. The scientist Nikolai Vavilov identified the progenitor to domestic apples in the region. to then distribute it to production everywhere else in the world. Sadly, human endeavors have ravaged the wild apple's natural habitats. The Malus severi species, the progenitor of apples, is listed as vulnerable by IUCN Red List, and the population is decreasing. The apple forests are now threatened due to residential and commercial development, livestock farming, and deforestation. Let's hope the country can figure this out before they run out. Number 22. The beautiful animal that's rarely seen in nature exists in the Transli-Alatal Mountains around Almaty, the snow leopard. These leopards are a symbol of Kazakhstan and are nicknamed the ghost of the mountain due to their solitary and shy behavior. Unfortunately, the population of snow leopards is decreasing due to humans' careless and irresponsible actions. One particular snow leopard was found to be sick and brought into the Almaty Zoo. Soon after it arrived, the animal died. The cause of death was a plastic bag inside its stomach that someone discarded in the mountains. To counteract this, there are local initiatives by the government, such as setting up an untouched nature reserve protected area. Number 23. Kazakhstan doesn't just celebrate the new year on January 1st. It also has its own New Year's Day on March 21st, or Nariz Day. The day celebrates the spring equinox and the rejuvenation of nature. It represents kindness, riches, happiness, love, and friendships. During the reign of the Soviet Union, Nowruz was prohibited, but once Kazakhstan became independent, it became a national holiday. The way to celebrate Nowruz Day is centered around the idea of renewal, birth, and a fresh start. People usually do some house cleaning, debt settling, and forgiveness of others' wrongdoing to let go and continue living. There are also activities that locals do, such as wrestling, poetry recitals, street plays, and horse games. Sometimes you can also find wooden swing sets where boys and girls socialize. Number 24. A unique game in Kazakhstan is called Keys Q, or Chase the Girl. Usually young men and women participate in this game, where a horsewoman skips away and the man will try to catch her. The women will then whip the man to get away. If the man can't reach her before the finishing point, she can punish the man with another whip. But if the man reaches her, he is granted a kiss from the woman. Number 25. One particular practice in Kazakhstan may surprise you. The country has a history of conducting virginity testing. Virginity Test is a controversial act that determines whether or not a girl has had sexual intercourse. That's because female virginity is highly valued and expected for marriage or employment in certain cultures. Although many medical experts have deemed it as unreliable, it is still practiced in certain parts of the world, including Kazakhstan. This kind of test could lead to psychological problems later on in life. Girls can also face social persecution as well, such as being isolated from their families and communities or unable to marry due to being considered impure.